Everyone and anyone is talking about AI agents, and most people have no idea how to use it within their tools. ClickUp's answer to this is called super agents, and they're AI teammates that work in your entire workspace. I haven't played around with it yet, so I brought in Gray McKenzie, who helps teams on board with ClickUp through his company Zen Pilot, to dive into all of the questions I had, including what is a super agent and exactly how you can optimize it as an individual or in your team. So without further ado, let's dive into it with Gray. If you're just watching this video and you're curious about what ClickUp is, you can find a software discount to it over on toolfinder.com. Go to the top, search for ClickUp, and find out more details there.
My name is Gray McKenzie. I'm the founder at Zen Pilot, and we help teams streamline their operations on top of ClickUp. We're doing that kind of through a combination of, I think what most teams really need is like a coherent way of working together. So a methodology, whether they use ours, the Zen Pilot methodology, which we've published and that's available free, anybody can see it. But there needs to be a methodology for how you work. And then we want to pair it with the traction of like, and we can help you plug that into one of the most powerful tools on the market today.
Someone's probably watching this and going, right, what does that actually look like? Could you give us a sort of an example of how the super agents work?
So I've got ClickUp pulled up here, and where I am is I'm just in this AI tab inside my ClickUp workspace. So when we're talking about super agents, you can kind of see a list of the different team members I've got here, super agents that are here with a quick description of them. So like this accountability partner, we could go in and we could see what are the instructions. So if I wanted, we could pull this up. I could expand this or edit it even here. You can kind of see this is similar to the markdown files that a lot of folks will be super familiar with from other tools. What triggers it? If you pick and choose, this will all I'll show you the build process to build one of these, because this is like, well, this is a lot to configure all at first. What's cool is you can pick and choose what tools you give it access to. And if you want to add, internal or external tools. So obviously there's a ton of different actions you can take in ClickUp. And then you've got whatever tools you've got connected or whatever else that super agents can take actions in or read data from. When I first started building these, I was just clicking all the buttons. I was like, why would I obviously I want to give it all context. And then you realize like, oh no, actually these perform better when you scope down a little bit into, hey, like what specific info do you need to do this job very well? So I'd be much better off having a couple different agents do a super complex workflow than just try to one shot it with one agent. So I think being aware of that and what you're putting in the context window is really important. ClickUp's like the memory side of this that you've got access to. This intelligence, and I'll just pull this up here. It won't be able to read it, but basically this intelligence feature lets the agent automatically learn and store memories that it decides are helpful or not. So obviously you could keep training it and say, hey, generate an update to instructions, and you could go manually save it. But this is a really cool feature. And then the warning for this is just, hey, it may pick up stuff that you tried to tell an agent, not realizing someone else in your workspace had access to it. And you said, don't ever answer an email like this person just answered it. And then, those instructions get surfaced back to it. So just be aware.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's kind of the back end interface of agents. Would it be helpful to see one run first? Do you want to walk through building one? What would be most useful for you?
I think seeing like one run in a practical, and then maybe just understanding the process of building one. Like you said there, like don't do this, do this.
Yep. Great. Yeah. Well, I'll take you through. We'll pick one of these just to show it since it's already built. And let's take maybe a super common one, which is sales to delivery handoff. So the common use case there, we'll see if I've got I don't have the CRM up yet, but we'll go into the CRM and take a look at this. So CRM use case, you've got a list of all your deals going on. We could visualize this however we want to. In this case, we've got opportunities, contract sent, close won, close lost. whatever. So you've got some amount of information on a deal in your CRM. You can see I ran this one just so that I'd have one to pull up kind of quickly if we were tight on time, but we'll run it fresh here. So I've got all the information about the deal specifically. I've got some information tied to this deal. So we've got a call transcript, which is what we would do internally. We'd have all of our, I probably want all my emails synced up to the deal. I want my transcripts synced up to the deal, basically any information that we have there. The problem in most sales processes is that you've got a sales rep or a couple folks on the growth team who have all this context on the prospect. They close the deal, they hand it over, and often you're restarting that entire process now with the delivery team. So what this agent does is it's basically going to take, and we could either assign it to the task here. So we'll take and we'll actually assign this in this case to the agent, but we could also just tag it in a comment and say, hey, please create the handoff docs. And it's going to create a whole handoff doc so that, whoever's coming in here and getting this deal now doesn't just know that it's a $90,000 deal that we're going to work on together. That agent also would have just automatically run once I moved it to closed one. So that's the way that the handoff agent is set up to run. And now it's going to pull all the context, and then put that together into a doc. And you can see an example here of what it pulled up. Hey, I created the handoff. Here's the doc. And then kind of the shorter version of that doc has this information. And it's also trained to call out, hey, the obvious things we need to know is that if our goal is a 5% month-over-month subscriber growth, then we need to know these metrics. But we also need to get this assigned to the right person, and we need to still update some of the ClickUp mechanics here. Mm-hmm. And then that doc that it generated is going to look like this here. So that handoff, so give the context background. Here's the summary, and then go into a little bit more detail. And all of this is obviously going to be powered. Like the coolest thing about these super agents in ClickUp, and I think this goes for most agents in most tools, if you're building this stuff right, is it can learn and get better and better over time. So every time we finish one of these projects, or we just finished a handoff, we say, hey, here's a list of the pains. Here's the things we should have caught that we didn't catch. Like, please note that and add it to our brain, basically our instructions that we're giving it on how do we run smoother handoffs over time. And it learns from that. And, you can make the whole process run smoother and smoother as you go.
Yeah. I liked how fast that was as well. I didn't expect it to produce a report like that.
Yeah. And you can pick that, like you could have that handoff agent. Let's just see the instructions for this one. You can choose how you want to interface with it. Do you want that to go out to everybody? So in some teams you do. You want it to just get posted, especially a small team. It's always going to this person. Just post it, no problem. In other teams, you've got a head of delivery or a project, like a traffic manager who's going to get assigned that task once it closes, and they're in charge of picking who on the team is going to be taking point on it. And so they should probably be using super agents to help them make those assignments as well. But they may just want to get it via DM, and then once they've refined it, made the assignment, finalized it, then attach that to the task in ClickUp.
Great. And before we move on to like the creating one from sort of scratch to some extent, all the do's and don'ts of it, in this the window outside of this one, where you're chatting with the super agent builder, is this I haven't played with it properly yet. Is this a place where you plan how you want to use it, or is it where it just pulls the interfaces with the context?
Great question. So you can do both. Obviously, you could interface, like send a request directly to it, or teach a new hire how this super agent works. We could give it that kind of thing, and it'll write up directions, or we could say, hey, update this so that it also posts a comment to the deal task and announces who the assignee is who will be taking lead on delivery. And so we could give it that kind of information as well. So obviously it'll, you can interface with it. You can ask it for specific things, or you can prompt it to update, and it'll update the instructions as you go.
Oh, that's great.
And usually it'll do what it's doing here, which is just confirm. Obviously, it's the instructions, so it's pretty important. And you pick and choose, what you want, and you can go through and update it from there.
Great. No, that actually works quite well.
Yeah.
I didn't expect it to work like within modular elements of the app, like the deals area you showed with the assigning. I've seen it briefly, but not sort of how that's worked, if that makes sense.
Yeah. That piece is probably the most useful part of this, because otherwise you're left to try to remember to go back to it. It's still helpful when it's living somewhere else, but if it's just living in this window by itself, it's still helpful that it's got the full context of ClickUp, but in a lot of ways it is just like interfacing with Claude or ChatGPT or whatever other tool. Like, you're almost in a separate tool versus being able to use it in line with your work, have it make handoffs or assignments or comments and that kind of stuff.
That's great. Yeah. And like, for somebody that's watching this and going, I want this,
Yeah.
obviously they'll be going now, like you said, with the whole instructions area being like a rules MD file type thing. What are the sort of top tips you'd give somebody when creating and what to add exactly?
Yeah. You can cut this out if you want. Like, there's, I've done a video on our ClickUp Weekly podcast on the first 3 super agents you should build. And so if you want to see, I'll cover some of those things too, but if you want the kind of the slowed down version of it, that video might be helpful for people.
Great. Yeah. I'll make sure to add that.
The other things, like the big tips that I have about building super agents are, it's very exciting to get momentum. So it's totally fine if your first one is, hey, make sure that we never have another overdue task in the system. And that's kind of all you prompt it. It'll do something. That's not going to be perfect, because there's reasons why, you probably have a more nuanced approach to dealing with overdue tasks than just always move them forward in time and that's it. So that's fine to get a feel for how it works. Long term, you're going to want to use a handful of different agents working together, most likely. So instead of saying, hey, I want a super agent that just produces whole new, YouTube videos for me, we probably want one to do the design, and it's just trained on how do I create awesome thumbnails, and one to do the scripting, one to go through the transcript and clean it up, write the YouTube description. So I think breaking some of those into modules and then training it to work within agents themselves. So you don't have to once it's built, it is more work to build, that's for sure, because you've got to build a couple different agents. And you can ask it how to break it up, and it does a pretty decent job of leading you through it. But once it's built, it's not necessarily any more work, because they'll interface among themselves. Right. The other thing is, you just need to do a lot of training if you have anything that's pretty complex. So say hey, I don't like this, and then why you didn't. And so this kind of training your agent, this is one of those things that I kind of felt like at the beginning of using these tools, this is going into a black box. What a waste of time. I'm not the kind of person who's going to take the time to submit this stuff. And what I've learned is that's totally wrong. This actually will improve your agent performance. It learns from this stuff really well. So those are the 2 big things. And then probably the third thing is just to be aware of where a super agent itself is overkill for the situation. There are still a lot of situations where someone's using a super agent to do something that it's doing a totally fine job with, but it could be a simple automation or a different use case in ClickUp. And so, as we're still at the very early exploratory stages of pricing. And as these things potentially get more expensive or substantially more expensive, or in some cases are already pretty expensive, being resource efficient is worth learning about too. And so just understanding a full scope. It would be easy if someone's brand new jumping into ClickUp to just say, let me go build 20 super agents on day 1 and call it good. But long-term, you'll probably appreciate if you build 10 of those as simple automations instead of super agents.
Yeah. No, I agree with you there. And I didn't really think of the okay, I've never touched this like button or the like button on other chatbots, but actually you're right, it does, especially in a system like this where it is just the knowledge is limited and how to improve it. So it's a good shout.
Yeah.
I also like how you reference like something a lot of people do is like what you said is basically like build for such a broad use case, but picking your eggs and doing it based on that is actually a really good idea, I think.
Yeah. We've gone into a lot of workspaces at this point where like
pain.
they're not working. And then you look at it and you're like, oh, I bet we could get this working. And it's not that much work to actually go get it working super well. But it's just such a funny swing. That's such a natural part of the adoption curve. It is so exciting to hit this and say, boy, I bet I would love to have my own project manager. Let's just build it and start building it. And it's so exciting. And then it doesn't work perfectly. You go into the trough, forget this. Like maybe another tool will have it. But the reality is, like, getting clear, and this is the whole skill that we've got to develop. Like I'm talking about this with my kids all the time now, is your ability to know what you want and then ask for what you want and be flexible when it suggests ideas. Like, know what you really want at the beginning. Be willing to change that if it has better ideas. But if it doesn't have better ideas, feel free to say, no, that's not what I want. Let's do this instead. And so that, like, the prompting and the taste is the hardest part of this.
For you, how has the super agent side or the agent side helped your workflow in particular?
Oh yeah. So in terms of personal impact, like I think probably with most of these tools, it would be similar for a lot of folks, where the first thing you look at is like, hey, what are the time saving things we can do? So an email triage super agent that's going to look at all my emails and draft up responses for the important ones, and take care, like archive or move emails around for me. And so that's kind of super focused on just time savings at the very beginning, and then quickly you get to the point where it's like, wait, this isn't necessarily just about being more efficient. Like this is about how do we deliver better work here. So for me, there's a couple main things. Productivity is one of them still. So being more efficient in a ton of tasks and just unlocking bandwidth for other areas is huge. I think alignment is probably the most impactful one so far. Mm-hmm. So the cool thing about it being in ClickUp, because you can build agents in 1,000 different tools today. The cool thing about it being in ClickUp, if the whole team has their work in ClickUp, is it's got kind of the full scope of here's what everyone's working on and where someone else is running into obstacles or where they're having success. And so I can feed it, here's our business plan and here are our objectives for the quarter. And you help me make sure that I'm keeping the team aligned, or like you really keep the team aligned for me and say, hey, because it's so easy to get lost in the weeds of what I'm focused on and lose sight of, hey, that doesn't have anything to do with what Alex is doing over here, or Amy's doing over here, or someone on the team is doing over here. And at times in any organization, you run into areas where it's like you're either working against each other completely unintentionally, or just working in totally different areas, and we get distracted. And so that's probably the most helpful thing for me, is just giving a super agent, like, here's what we're focused on for this quarter. Here are the things that are important to us all the time at ZenPilot, and here's specifically the initiatives that we have a quarter at a time. You help summarize for me how well everyone's doing at actually staying focused and on task there, and help me bring together the things where someone just built something that would make this next step of my task easier, or an agent did it. So that alignment thing has been the most helpful thing for me from ClickUp Super Agents.
Yeah, it's a good shout. Like the decision-making and creativity elements of it is where the quality of the result lies.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Gray, for coming on. I really appreciate you sort of diving into how this works. Particularly after this video, if people were looking for more help or want to be able to dig deeper into their ClickUp workspace, how can you help?
Yeah. Go to zenpilot.com/call and you can reach out to us there. You're welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to help folks. And also, we produce a weekly show that goes out every Saturday afternoon, my time, Eastern time, called ClickUp Weekly. And so if you subscribe to that, you'll get kind of, constant updates on what's happening, what's developing in ClickUp, and really solid teaching from folks who are in the weeds with dozens of clients every week.